The kitchen is older, but it still looks pretty good. Right next to it is a beautiful sunroom. And of course, there's the warm carpet everyone seems to love. Looks perfect, doesn't it? Except for one thing. There's a strange smell. And somehow you keep getting headaches. Let's take a look under the kitchen sink. At first glance, everything seems fine. Someone did a very good job hiding the problem, but there it is. Bingo. We're going to deal with this problem, but first we need to isolate the affected area. The first step is building a containment barrier using heavy plastic sheeting. We also create negative air pressure with an air scrubber. This helps prevent mold spores and mycotoxins from spreading throughout the rest of the home during the remediation process. Now the carpet has to go. During our inspection, we found a surprise hiding underneath. The subfloor wasn't just covered by carpet, it was covered by mold, and that's not all. At some point, someone appears to have tried to hide the problem by painting directly over the affected area instead of addressing the source. Now we're seeing the result. The mold continued to grow beneath the coating, while the underlying moisture issue remained unresolved. This is exactly why painting over mold is not remediation. It may hide the staining for a while, but it does nothing to stop the contamination from returning. All visible mold growth is treated with plant-based cleaning solutions. One of the advantages is that they don't produce the strong chemical odors often associated with traditional products, which can be important for sensitive individuals. Once the surface has been treated, it's time to physically remove the mold. For that, we use a wire brush. It's a simple but highly effective method for removing mold growth from structural wood surfaces. Of course, we could start tearing everything apart right away, but our goal is always to minimize unnecessary demolition whenever possible. So before making that decision, let's see what's hiding underneath the kitchen cabinets. The dishwasher also needs to come out. As we begin exposing the area, signs of water damage are everywhere. At this point, we don't know how far the moisture has traveled or how much of the surrounding material has been affected. But what we're seeing isn't encouraging. The staining, water damage, and visible contamination suggest this problem has been developing for quite some time. And unfortunately, it's becoming clear that saving this kitchen may not be the best option. Before any final decision is made, the affected materials need to be fully exposed and evaluated. But based on what we're seeing so far, a full kitchen removal is looking increasingly likely. This kitchen has reached the end of its life. Trying to carefully remove and save these cabinets simply doesn't make sense. Mold can be hiding behind, underneath, and inside areas we can't see. That's why we've decided to remove the entire kitchen and expose everything. We also decided to inspect the wall beneath the window, and there it was. This is something we see quite often, and unfortunately, this house was no exception. To get a better understanding of the damage, I made a few exploratory cuts along the bottom of the wall, about 3 inches above the floor. What we found behind the drywall was shocking. A massive mold colony had been growing inside the wall cavity, completely hidden from view. From the outside, there were only a few warning signs, but behind the wall, the damage was extensive. At that moment, it became clear that this wasn't just a small leak or an isolated issue. We were dealing with a much larger contamination problem than anyone had expected. This was a real challenge for our team. A massive mold colony versus the mold away crew. In a situation like this, the ideal solution would have been a complete demolition of all affected materials. But if we had taken that approach, very little of the house would have been left standing beyond the framing itself. So we made the decision to clean and restore as much of the structure as possible. For hours, we treated the affected surfaces with cleaning solutions and scrubbed them by hand. Then we HEPA vacuumed, and then we cleaned again, over and over. Every surface had to be addressed carefully and methodically. There are no shortcuts in a project like this, just patience, hard work, and repetition. Because when you're dealing with contamination on this scale, one pass is rarely enough. Now it's time for the fogger. This machine works alongside the air scrubber, although at this stage, we're no longer maintaining negative pressure inside the containment area. Together, they help clean and filter the air. The next step is detailed cleaning. Dust and debris must be removed from every accessible surface. Walls, ceilings, light fixtures, ceiling fans, furniture, everything. The goal is simple: leave no reservoir for contamination to remain behind. When the room finally looks as clean as an operating room after a tornado, we're ready for the final test. The post-remediation air sample. The sample is sent to an independent laboratory to determine whether the remediation was successful and whether airborne mold levels have returned to acceptable conditions. Only then can we confidently say the job is complete.